Good evening. May I have this dance?
You can't be serious. Here.
The choice is yours, Elena. Do you trust me?
Why would any man waste a dance on her? Trevor Hamilton raised his glass with a smug grin. Every boy in tuxedos burst into laughter. Savannah Ashford, 18, paralyzed, the billionaire's only daughter, froze as a tear slid down her cheek. "Look at her, boys." Then a black serving boy stepped forward, jaw tight, eyes burning. "Miss Ashford is not paralyzed. Dislocated L1 vertebra, pinched sciatic nerve. 12 hospitals missed it." Trevor snarled. "Shut your mouth. Somebody get the help out of here." Across the ballroom, the billionaire father shot up from his chair as if catching the last flicker of hope after 2 long years. And the boy never imagined those few words would change both their lives forever. 3 months earlier, on a gray February morning in Charleston, South Carolina, a county van rolled up the gravel drive of Bellwood Preparatory Academy. The school had stood for 200 years above the Ashley River, ivy on its walls, the names of senators and oilmen carved into brass plaques in the library. Out of the van stepped a tall, thin black boy in a thrift store coat, carrying one duffel bag and a small wooden case that looked to the casual eye like it might hold a violin. His name was Wesley Williams, 18 years old, an orphan from St. Augustine's Home for Boys, and the only scholarship student in Bellwood's senior class. Coach Lawrence Moore, broad-shouldered, kind-eyed, a Marine's haircut, met him at the steps. "Welcome, son. Dining hall serves the staff first. Kitchen entrance on the left. Don't take it personal. That's just how things are around here." Wesley nodded once. He didn't take it personal. He had spent most of his life not taking things personal. His mornings began at 4:30. He set tables before sunrise, refilled water carafes, polished silverware, washed dishes until midnight on weekends. He spoke quietly. He kept his head down. The other boys called him the Ghost and walked through him in hallways as if his body did not occupy space. He never complained, never asked for help. Every night, before he turned out the light, he touched a small silver locket around his neck and whispered the same 2 words. "Good night, Mama." The old janitor, Walter Brown, once swore he heard music from the locked music conservatory at 2 in the morning. A Viennese waltz played on a single piano, soft and certain, the kind of music a man plays when he is talking to a ghost. Coach Moore told him to forget what he heard. He did, but he sometimes wondered what kind of orphan plays Strauss at 2 in the morning. Savannah Ashford was a different kind of ghost. 2 years earlier, she had been the brightest girl in Charleston society, a competitive equestrian, a junior debate champion, a debutante in training. She was riding her father's prize thoroughbred in the regional dressage finals at the Aiken Hunt Club when the horse spooked at a thunderclap. She went over the rail. Her father reached her 30 seconds later and found her conscious but unable to feel her legs. She was 16. In the 2 years since, her father, Harrison Ashford III, CEO of Ashford Industries, friend to 2 governors and 1 former president, had spent over $32 million trying to give his daughter back her legs, 12 hospitals across 3 continents, 12 teams of the most decorated neurosurgeons alive, 12 identical conclusions, permanent spinal cord trauma, lower body paralysis, no intervention possible. Patients should adjust to lifelong use of mobility aids. Savannah stopped speaking for 4 months after the 7th diagnosis. She stopped writing. She stopped dancing. And before the fall, she had been the kind of dancer her instructor said would one day perform at Lincoln Center. Her mother, Margaret, watched the brightness in her daughter's eyes fade like a candle in a draft, and prayed every Sunday for a miracle her own faith was no longer sure existed. When Margaret proposed an 18th birthday debutante ball at Ashford Manor, 400 guests, full orchestra, silver gown, chandeliers, Harrison resisted. Savannah resisted harder, but Margaret begged with tears in her eyes, "Please, sweetheart, just one night, just to remind the world you're still here." Savannah agreed because her mother cried and because somewhere beneath the silence, a part of her still wanted, desperately and secretly, to be invited back into her own life. She did not know the boy who would invite her was, at that exact moment, 3 miles away, ironing a borrowed tuxedo and whispering goodnight to a locket. She did not know that her ex-boyfriend, the senator's son, who had stopped visiting her hospital room after the second week, was already drafting in his head the cruelest sentence ever spoken in a ballroom in South Carolina. The ballroom of Ashford Manor on the night of January 24th looked like something from a Henry James novel. 3 baccarat chandeliers burned over a parquet floor laid by hand the year George Washington died. 400 guests, senators, surgeons, oil heirs, 2 governors, the wife of a Supreme Court justice, drank champagne and pretended, with the practiced grace of the very rich, not to notice the girl in the silver gown at the edge of the dance floor. Savannah sat in her wheelchair beside the orchestra. Her mother had spent 2 hours arranging her hair, fastening pearl drops to her ears, smoothing silver silk over her motionless knees. "You look like a queen, sweetheart," Margaret had told her in the mirror. Savannah had tried to smile. It hadn't reached her eyes. The first waltz began. Margaret bent to her ear. "I see Daniel Wilson over there. Let me ask him." "Mom, please don't." But Margaret was already crossing the floor. Daniel looked at her, looked at Savannah, looked at his shoes. "I'd love to, Mrs. Ashford, but I already promised this one to someone." He had no partner. He found one in 30 seconds and never looked back. It happened 4 more times. A sprained wrist that wasn't sprained. A phone call that was never taken. An apology with no second song to follow it. By the 5th refusal, the whispers had started. "Look away. Don't make it worse," a woman murmured to her husband. A girl Savannah had once tutored hid a giggle behind a napkin. Headmaster Gregory Wilson studied the orchestra rather than the girl in the chair. Coach Moore, there as Wesley's chaperone, felt his jaw lock. Margaret was crying silently now behind Savannah's chair. Savannah's hands had gone bone white on the armrests. She stared at the silver hem of her gown and willed herself not to break in front of 400 people. "Just one waltz, sweetheart. Just one." Then Trevor Hamilton walked in, late on purpose, in a $3,000 tuxedo. His father, Senator Charles Hamilton, was deep in conversation at table 1. Trevor scanned the room, saw Savannah at the edge of the floor with her crying mother behind her, and his mouth curved into something that was not quite a smile. He had dated Savannah for 9 months before the accident. He had visited her twice in the hospital, then stopped, because his friends teased him, because his father said quietly, "Son, a Hamilton doesn't carry dead weight." He was 18 and a coward, and he did not yet know that cowardice has a way of arriving at its own ballroom. He raised his champagne flute. His lacrosse teammates gathered around him like satellites. Why would any man here waste a dance on half a girl in a wheelchair? A laugh broke, then another, then 6. "Look at her, boys. A broken doll. Nobody returns to the store. Cat got your legs?" Savannah did not move. A single tear traced her jaw. Margaret pressed both hands over her mouth and made a small, wounded sound. Harrison rose halfway from his chair. His wife caught his wrist. "Not in front of everyone, please." He sat back down, knuckles white around his glass. The headmaster did not move. The governors did not move. 400 of the wealthiest people in 3 states held their drinks at chest height and watched a paralyzed 18-year-old be destroyed at her own birthday. Not one of them stood up. At the far end of the room, a tall, thin black boy in a borrowed tuxedo set down the bottle he was holding, removed his serving gloves, folded them, and placed them on the tray. Coach Moore caught his eye and gave one small nod. "Go." Wesley crossed the longest 40 feet of his life. The orchestra played a Chopin nocturne, but every guest turned their head as he passed, like wheat bending in a wave. Trevor stepped into his path. "Where do you think you're going, busboy?" Wesley stepped around him the way a river steps around a rock. Trevor's hand shot out and caught his elbow. "I asked you a question, boy." Wesley looked down at the hand, then up into Trevor's eyes, and something in Trevor's face flickered, the small animal warning a man gets when he's touched something he's misjudged. Trevor let go. Wesley reached the wheelchair and knelt to her exact eye level, the way a man kneels at an altar. "My name is Wesley Williams. I work the kitchen at Bellwood. I'm sorry for what they said." Savannah did not lift her head. "Miss Ashford, may I have this dance?" It came out so gentle, so absent of pity, that her head rose slowly as if pulled by a string she'd forgotten she had. I know what they said about your legs. They were wrong. 12 hospitals were wrong. Your spine is not the prison they told you it was. I can feel it from here. He paused. But before I prove that, I'd like to be the first man tonight who treats you like a woman, not a diagnosis. Will you give me one dance? Margaret made a small breaking sound. Savannah's right hand, the one that always shook from disuse, lifted slowly like something rising from deep water. She placed it in his. Yes, she whispered. A gasp moved through the front tables. Trevor laughed, half a beat too late and a beat too thin. Headmaster Wilson stood. Now wait just a moment. Coach Moore put a hand on his shoulder. Sit down, Gregory. You're about to see something you'll tell your grandchildren about. He sat. Wesley turned to the orchestra and raised 3 fingers in a small, polished gesture the conductor hadn't seen executed in person since Vienna, 2014. Jeffrey Brown's baton froze mid-air. His face went white. He looked at the boy, the wheelchair, the boy again, then lowered his baton and whispered 3 German words to his musicians. The Chopins stopped. A long, perfectly tuned violin note rose into the chandeliers and hung there like a promise. At table 4, an 81-year-old woman in emerald, Madame Eleanor Brooks, set down her cane and rose to her feet for the first time in public in 3 years. It can't be, she whispered to no one. Wesley placed his right hand behind Savannah's shoulder, his left still in hers. Trust me 1 minute, Miss Ashford. Just one. The first chord of Tales from the Vienna Woods rolled across the floor. But Wesley did not begin a waltz. He began an examination. His fingertips found the hidden ridge where her dress closure ran along her spine, and through the silk his hand began to read her body the way another man might read Braille. "What are you doing?" she breathed. His thumb walked vertebra by vertebra downward, T10, T11, T12, L1, and paused there for 3 full seconds, his jaw tightening as he counted the rotation in the bone, 4 millimeters off center, 8 degrees of twist. Then lower, along the sciatic pathway, where he felt fibrotic tissue gripping the nerve like a fist that had never opened. "Miss Ashford, I need to tell you 3 things before you answer me. 1, your spinal cord is intact. It always has been." She made a sound like a breath catching on glass. 2, the L1 vertebra rotated when you fell. It locked, compressing the nerve root. Over 2 years, the ligament scarred around that compression. 12 surgeons saw a paralyzed cord because that's what they expected to see. Nobody examined the rotation. Her hand went cold in his. 3, I can fix it tonight, in this room, in about 3 minutes if you'll trust me. Margaret, who had heard everything, stumbled forward. "Sir, who are you? What are you saying to my daughter?" Wesley didn't look up. "Ma'am, I'm asking your daughter's permission. Not yours, hers." Harrison was already crossing the room, weaving between tables, his face the color of old paper. "Stop this! Get away from her!" "Harrison," Madame Eleanor Brooks caught his sleeve. "Look at his hands." Harrison looked. The fingers weren't searching. They were placed, each on a precise anatomical landmark, the hand of a man who had been doing this since before he could read. "Harrison, I trained under the best spinal manipulators alive for 40 years. I have never seen a hand find an L1 rotation through a ball gown in under 30 seconds. Let him work." "Eleanor, my daughter is not a—" "Then ask her, not me, her." Harrison turned to Savannah, his mouth opening and closing. He had spent $32 million in 2 years searching for an answer, and the answer was kneeling on his ballroom floor in a borrowed tuxedo, holding his daughter's hand. "Savannah, baby, whatever you want." She looked at Wesley. The tears had stopped. Something else had taken their place. A small, terrible flame Margaret hadn't seen since the morning of the fall. "Do it," she whispered. Wesley lifted her onto a nearby velvet chaise with the ease of someone who had done it 1,000 times, smoothed the gown over her legs, and turned to the room. "Everyone behind the table line. No phones, no flashes. Nobody moved until Coach Moore said one word. Move. 400 people moved. He laid his palms flat on her back. The first step will feel warm. The second, pins and needles. The third, one sharp sound. After that, we'll know. What if you're wrong? She asked. Then we'll have lost 3 minutes, and I'll spend the rest of my life apologizing. But Miss Ashford, I am not wrong. He found 3 points along the sciatic pathway, holding each for 7 heartbeats. 3 gates, his mother had called them. 3 doors locked too long. On the 7th count of the 3rd gate, Savannah gasped. I feel heat. Wesley, I feel heat. Margaret collapsed beside the chaise, sobbing without sound. Harrison stood frozen, one tear cutting down his face. Somewhere behind the tables, Trevor muttered, "This is rigged." Nobody turned to look at him. Wesley positioned his hands, right palm over L1, left forearm under her ribs. Breathe in, out, empty, on 3. 1, 2, 3. A small, clean snap, like a piano hammer striking a long, silent key. Savannah's eyes flew open. Oh my God, I can feel my feet. Her toes, motionless for 2 years, curled inside her silver heels. Curled, uncurled, curled again. Margaret wept the way a mother weeps only once in her life. I'm going to help you sit up. The nerves are waking. It'll feel like fire for a minute. That's good. He brought her upright, knelt before her, both her hands in his. Now stand. I can't. Lean your weight into my hands. Let your legs do nothing. Just let them be there. She rose 8 inches. 12. The silver hem unfurled toward the floor like a flag being raised. For 3 full seconds, Savannah Ashford stood on her own at her own birthday party for the first time in 2 years. Then her right foot, by itself, took half a step forward. The sound that came out of Margaret was older than words. Harrison dropped to one knee beside her. Then the chain of Wesley's locket, the one he'd touched every night for 7 years, caught on his cufflink as he straightened up. The clasp opened. The locket fell into his palm, hinge swinging wide. Madame Eleanor Brooks, 3 feet away, saw the photograph inside, and her cane clattered to the floor. William! The whisper carried. She knew the face. Everyone in the field had known it. A tall black man in a doctor's coat, kneeling on a clinic porch, holding a laughing 5-year-old. Behind him, a hand-painted sign, Family Medicine, Free Care, Knox Hollow, West Virginia. That's Dr. William Williams, Eleanor breathed, the miracle doctor of Appalachia. A retired neurosurgeon at table 6 rose to his feet. The wife of the Supreme Court Justice rose too. Her father had been treated by Dr. Williams in 1991. A woman from Atlanta covered her face and sat down hard. He had healed her sister's spine in 2009, 3 months before he died. Wesley's free hand closed around the locket, and the smallest tremble of the night passed through his shoulders. Young man, Eleanor said, are you Will's boy? He nodded once. Yes, ma'am. Oh, child. Harrison stepped closer. Your father saved my niece at Charleston General, the night of the bridge collapse. Yes, sir. And your mother? Margaret Williams, emergency room nurse. She died 4 years ago. She taught me everything my father taught her. 4 hours a night for 4 years. Eleanor closed her eyes, 2 tears cutting through her powder. Why didn't anyone know, child? Why are you washing dishes at Bellwood? Wesley looked down at the locket. My father always said a doctor who heals to be known is a salesman, not a doctor. And my mother told me the night she died, only ever heal because somebody needs you, not because anybody's watching. The room was silent enough to hear the first violinist set down his bow with shaking hands. Savannah slid her hand into Wesley's and squeezed. Then tonight somebody needed you. Standing was not walking. Walking, after 2 years of atrophy, had to be relearned 1 syllable at a time. Her knee buckled. Wesley caught her. Easy. The signal's reaching the muscle, but the muscle's forgotten what to do with it. Look at me. Her eyes were wild and bright in a way Margaret hadn't seen since she was 16. 8 steps. We're going to dance the Strauss the way you were supposed to dance it tonight. Your legs are babies. They'll wobble, they'll want to quit. Lean everything into my hands. Yes. And if you fall, I'll catch you, every time, until your legs remember they're yours. Yes. Then Trevor broke from the line of tables. This is fraud. He's drugged her. Look at her. He shoved toward them, hand lifting as if to grab her arm. He didn't get within 3 feet. Coach Moore stepped into his path like a wall. Son, your father's in this room. So is mine in spirit. You've crossed every line a gentleman doesn't cross tonight. Sit down. Or what? Or I let her father decide what happens to you. And right now, Trevor, he does not look merciful. Harrison stood 3 steps behind, his face a thundercloud, hands open at his sides in the terrifying stillness of a wealthy man, one decision from ending another man's life. Trevor's mouth opened. Nothing came out. He sat down and didn't speak again. The orchestra began the slow second movement, the one that begins like a sunrise. Right foot first. Her thigh, dormant for 2 years, trembled like a struck wire, then fired, 4 inches forward. A tear ran down Margaret's face, unwiped. Left foot, don't look down, look at me. 5 inches. Now we breathe, now we sway. 1, 2, 3, let your shoulders go first, your feet will follow. His weight shifted. Hers followed, hesitant, then less so. A small, complete circle began to turn on the parquet, its center a black orphan in a borrowed tuxedo and a billionaire's daughter in silver, finally remembering how to move. Wesley's hand drifted into a closed-hold frame, the position adaptive ballroom coaches use when a partner is relearning to bear weight. Eleanor murmured, "That's Vivian's frame," not yet knowing that Wesley's mother had once been taught it by a Vienna-born adaptive coach. When you teach a body to walk again, the coach had said, teach it to dance. The dance is the proof. 3 rotations in, Savannah laughed. The first laugh in 2 years and 4 months, short and stunned and bright as a flashbulb. Margaret cried out, then laughed and wept at once. There she is, Wesley said quietly. 4, 5. The music climbed, and he did the dance for her, with her, around her, the way a strong wind carries a young bird just out of the nest, close enough to catch her, far enough to let her fly. On the 6th rotation, her weaker foot slipped. Wesley caught her without breaking frame, cradling her for 2 beats, setting her down on the 3rd as if nothing had happened. Headmaster Wilson, on his feet, whispered, "How long has he been training?" Coach Moore didn't look away. Since before he could read, on the 8th rotation, Wesley brought her into the final figure, a long, slow lean backward, his hand cradling her spine exactly where her father once cradled her as a baby. The chandeliers caught in her hair. The orchestra held the resolving chord. He brought her up. Savannah stood on her own 2 feet in the center of the ballroom, her hand in the hand of a boy who'd arrived 3 months ago with 1 duffel bag and a locket. 400 millionaires understood all at once what they had just been allowed to witness. Madame Eleanor Brooks applauded first, standing without her cane. Harrison was second, already weeping. Then everyone, surgeons, senators, governors, 6 lacrosse boys who would never look in a mirror the same way again. The applause didn't stop for 4 minutes. "I forgot I was still in here," Savannah said, pressing her hand to her own heart. Wesley kissed her knuckles, slow and sacred, and bowed his head. "Welcome back, Miss Ashford." Harrison walked across the floor and did something no man in his bloodline had done in 3 generations. He knelt, a billionaire on one knee, before an 18-year-old orphan in a borrowed tuxedo. "There's no amount of money that can repay what you gave my family, but you will never want for anything again. You will never wash another dish unless you choose to. The Ashford family is your family now if you'll have us." Wesley's eyes were wet for the first time all night. "Sir, my father would have done the same for free." "I know. That's exactly why we're going to honor him." He turned to the room. "For 2 years I told myself there was no answer for my daughter. I was wrong. Tonight, a boy this room treated as invisible gave her back her legs and gave me back my child. Effective tomorrow, the Ashford Foundation commits $50 million to the William Williams Memorial Clinic in Knox Hollow, West Virginia. Free care, no exceptions, run by Dr. Williams's son when he's ready. Across the room, Trevor sat alone. His friends had moved 3 tables away. His father had already left. The video reached 11 million views in 72 hours. A guest had filmed the entire dance from her phone, captioning it only, "I was there. This is real." By Tuesday, the New York Times was at the gates. By Wednesday, the Today Show was calling. By Friday, Savannah gave her first interview, walking with a cane, Wesley 1 step behind her. Hashtag Justice for Wesley trended for 9 days. Senator Charles Hamilton lost re-election by 22 points. His concession speech never mentioned his son. Trevor was expelled from Bellwood within 96 hours, and the University of Virginia rescinded his admission. 3 years later, the last anyone heard of him was a small private wedding in Wyoming, where no one on the bride's side had heard of Ashford Manor. Wesley accepted a full scholarship to Johns Hopkins School of Medicine that spring, the same school his father had graduated from 31 years before, funded by the Ashford Foundation in his father's name. Madame Eleanor Brooks personally delivered the acceptance letter to St. Augustine's Home for Boys. "His father stood in this room in 1989, she said. His son will stand in it again." Savannah began intensive therapy 3 days after the ball. By spring, she walked unaided. By summer, she was riding again, a calm bay mare on the family farm. By autumn, she'd been accepted to Duke, where she would later earn a law degree in disability rights. Every year on the anniversary of the ball, she and Wesley return to that same parquet floor and dance one slow waltz to Tales from the Vienna Woods, the only encore the room ever asks for. The William Williams Memorial Clinic opened in Knox Hollow 11 months later, in the same building from the photograph in Wesley's locket. Inside the entrance hangs a single framed line in his mother's handwriting. "Only ever heal because somebody needs you, not because anybody is watching." Coach Lawrence Moore retired from Bellwood the following June. Asked the secret of his 30-year career, he said only, "I had the honor of carrying Dr. Williams's casket in 2017. I had the honor of watching over his boy in 2026. Some debts you spend a lifetime paying. The lucky ones you get to pay in full." This is not, in the end, a story about dancing. It's a story about who we choose to see and who we choose to walk past. The boy refilling water glasses at the edge of a room full of millionaires. The girl in the silver gown nobody asked to dance. The father on his knees. The mother weeping behind a wheelchair. The 400 witnesses who almost let cruelty win because cruelty was wearing a tuxedo. Every ballroom has a Wesley. Every wheelchair has a Savannah. Every cruel boy who turns a person into a thing will eventually sit alone while the world walks past him. And every quiet servant trained by a parent who loved him will, sooner or later, be asked to stand up in a room he was never invited to and decide in 3 seconds whether his gift is for himself or for the stranger who needs him. Dignity does not require working legs. Talent does not require a famous last name. The cruelest sentence in any language is the one that turns a person into a thing. The kindest act is the one taken when nobody expects it of you, in a room where nobody is paying you to take it. You know what haunts me about this story? Not Trevor. Guys like him are loud, but easy to spot. What haunts me is the 400 people who sat in their chairs and watched a girl get destroyed at her own birthday and didn't stand up until a boy nobody saw coming decided somebody needed him. Wesley's mother told him before she died, "Only ever heal because somebody needs you, not because anybody is watching." He wasn't supposed to matter in that room. That's exactly why he was the only one who did. So ask yourself, how many Wesleys have you walked past without knowing what they carried inside? And when the room went quiet and someone needed you to stand up, did you? Or did you stay in your chair? Drop "This is for Wesley" in the comments. Share this with someone who's been told they're finished. They need it tonight. And subscribe. We tell stories like this every week. Dignity doesn't require working legs. It never did.